Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Peggy, and this is Clarity in Chaos. And I am starting a series about abuse. So, this is episode number 1. Thank you so much for joining me today. In episode number 1, I'm going to talk about what is really hardly ever talked about as far as like in the abuse sphere, and that's self-abuse. And the reason why I'm starting with this is because self-abuse is it's very important. It's really important to talk about, but I don't see very much talk about it. I don't see a lot of people really including this a whole lot when they're talking about abuse. We usually hear about emotional abuse and physical abuse and things like that, but I don't see a lot of people talking about self-abuse. And so I want to just chat about that for a little while today, but I'm going to go ahead and put up a trigger warning right here. I'm going to be talking about things like eating disorders, death, suicide. Um could be also I could also be talking about addiction, definitely going to be talking about various types of abuse. So I really want people to take care. And if you think that this is going to be too sensitive of a subject, then you can check out any of my other videos. I do have some that aren't quite so gloomy and maybe a little bit more on the fun side. And then I also wanted to, real quick, bring a couple of phone numbers up, but just in case you or anyone you know that needs any type of help, maybe they can't get to any type of therapy, there are other ways that they can get in contact with people for just temporary help. It could be in a crisis, or it could be maybe they're not quite at the crisis level yet. And um, you know that something like suicide could be coming or could be in their mind, but you want to help them before it gets to that point. It's a good idea to call or text or email a hotline before things got really too serious. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 8988, or you can also chat with them online, and you'll see that their website address is down there too. Another group that I like is National Alliance on Mental Health, and they have all three. They have a phone number that you can call. You can text their helpline. You text the word helpline to 62640, or you can email them, and they have people standing by to respond to you. And then another helpline that I wanted to um, show was called the Crisis Text Line for Self-Harm. And you can text the word connect to 741-741. And this would be for people who they they self-harm, and we'll talk a lot about that, because that's a form of self-abuse, again, that it's just not getting talked about enough. So if you know people that self-harm and you want to try to get them help, you can get them to text this hotline, and they can get some help there. So again, just trigger warning, anything pretty much after right now could be disturbing. Depends on what you've been through, what your trigger warnings are. So please take care. And again, if you don't think this video is for you, I've got other stuff. Hi, Peggy P with her purple hair. See, Peggy, I got purple hair today, but not as purple as yours. Yours is a very nice shade of purple. Mine's not quite as pretty. So the type of abuse that is called self-abuse is where we harm ourselves, and a lot of times it's on purpose. Sometimes it's not on purpose, or it's just in our subconscious, but we harm ourselves in ways that could be physical or could be mental, emotional. And actually, I did look up the definition, and um, one of the definitions for self-harm was masturbation. And I thought, well, I guess I could see that maybe if you're doing it like 20 times a day and if it's a severe addiction, it that very well could be. But I wouldn't put masturbation just like generally in there because it's obviously it's supposed to be like a healthy form of, you know, like um type of self sexual, healthy type. And so you don't want to necessarily give the wrong impression. But yes, I would say if you're masturbating many times a day and you are hurting yourself, then yes, that would be a form of self abuse. But I thought it was interesting that that was in the definition, because that wasn't actually something that was on my list or that I was even thinking about. Um, so I first want to talk about negative self-talk. And that form of abuse is an emotional form of abuse. And um it comes from trauma. It's comes from a place where we learned how to talk to ourselves that way. We learned that talking to ourselves that way was okay because someone else talked to us that way. It doesn't necessarily come from out of the blue, with the exception of you walking on your sidewalk and you stub your toe and you fall and you go, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so clumsy." That's kind of something that most people would do, or you'd feel really silly about it. You'd hope that nobody saw it. This form of negative self talk is where you're throwing a lot of hate at yourself. You don't give yourself any leeway. You're very upset with yourself all the time. And that comes from someone who has talked to you like that, somebody who has shown you how to be like that with yourself. Oh, yeah, Peggy, mhm, if you're masturbating for, and you're using asphyxiation to, autoerotic, I think it's called, right? Then that definitely could be a form of self-harm, and, um, there's quite a few documented cases of people who've died that way, so yeah, you're right, I didn't think about that either. Um, I have, um I talk to myself negatively quite often, so this is one area I have some expertise in, and it's not like I'm proud of it. I do kinda joke about it because it's like a lot of dark things. It's kind of like, well, I mean, yes, I'm working on it. I'm working to fix it, but I also kinda have to joke about it a little bit because I'm not gonna sit around and cry about it and say, "Woe is me, I hate myself," but it is something that I'm working on. Um I have, like, a workbook that I have a couple workbooks that I'm working on. I'm not currently in therapy, because I have had a hard time finding a therapist recently, that works for me. But, normally, I am in therapy, and it is something that a therapist will work with me on. The We moved here last summer to California, but when I was living in New York, before that, I had a good therapist, and she used to actually, sit down with me and my husband once in a while and give him little exercises on how to help me talk nicer to myself. So that therapist had my husband in on it as well, since he knows that I do a lot of negative self-talk. Um, there's, daily affirmations, and you could put like a little sign on your wall, and you can every morning when you get up, you can say, whatever's on your affirmations list, and you could be like, "I love myself. I'm beautiful," and everybody likes me, and all of those things. You can write whatever you want to write they kind of make fun of self-affirmations in, various forms of media. I think, Saturday Night Live has a character that used to do things like that, and it can be funny, but it also can help you because if you do start the day off saying nice things to yourself, um, you're at least getting off on the right foot in the morning, and you're not immediately starting to beat yourself up as soon as you get out of bed. Um, you know, the experts, people who do a lot of the self-help types of things, they'll tell you that you should be nice to yourself. You should treat yourself like you treat your friends. You should treat yourself like you treat your children. You treat yourself like you treat your dog. Like my dogs are spoiled, and I'm constantly telling them how beautiful and wonderful and cute they are, and giving them belly rubs. And I could probably, like, I'll give myself a belly rub, and I'll give myself a bath and look in the mirror and say, "Oh, you're so beautiful." But it's really hard for me to do that when I have been told my whole life, well, not my whole life, but when I have been told for a very long time by certain people that I am slow or dumb or lazy or stupid, or I've been made fun of for my looks, or I've been called fat. And so to try to keep in my brain that those things aren't true. I am smart. Well, okay, I am kind of lazy. I'm a lazy person. I'm not the most energetic person, but I also suffer from severe fatigue, so there's that. um but I know that I'm not the things that people have told me, and I know I'm not the things that are in my head, but I do have that in my head, and it's really, really hard to get rid of when it's kind of been ingrained in you. So when you have that trauma of emotional abuse from when you're growing up, or from a relationship, I know that there's the abusive relationships that are more emotional and mental than they are physical. And I know when you have a physically abusive relationship, there's also the emotional side of it. You're being told you're dumb and you're lazy and you're worthless. All of these people who've been treated like this can't just snap their fingers and go, "Oh, you know what? I'm not actually like that." There's a lot more to it than that. You have to work on it, and it's a lot of work. But it is a way that we harm ourselves. It is a way that we abuse ourselves. And it is a good idea to work on it and to try to switch that around, because I promise you, you're not stupid. You're not lazy. You're not dumb. You're not worthless. And you are beautiful. And no matter what anybody says to you, they can't take away, like, they can't take away the fact that you really actually are intelligent. You do have that intelligence within you, because that's something that's, it's within your actual mental capabilities. So even though they can tell you and you can start to believe it, you are using your brain constantly. You are actually an intelligent person. And that intelligence leads to you being able to start to retrain your brain. Somewhere deep down in there, you're going, "I know that I'm not worthless. I know that. This person may keep saying this to me, but I know I'm not." So you're going to be able to get that teeny little voice that's way in the back of your brain. And I know some days it is really hard for me to hear that voice. It's a really, really tiny. Um, but at this point in my life, I am doing it to myself. I don't really have anybody in my life anymore who tells me these types of things. I am now doing this to myself. And I can't keep blaming what happened to me on my past. At this point, when I'm a week away from turning 46, I have taken that responsibility onto myself now, saying, okay, I have gotten a lot of professional help. I've been on, the proper medications. I've done so much work on myself that that little voice that's still in there, that's mostly me now. I can't say it's all me because it's still, certain people's actual voices still, circle around in my head. But I think for the most part, I am just the one that's continuing to abuse myself over and over again. Hi, Auntie. Nice to see you. Um, so negative self-talk is a form of self-abuse, and it is, I think, probably the most common, especially for those of us that have trauma in our background, any type of PSTD. We're just gonna think that we're not worth all this work. We're not worthy. We're not, you know, we're just not. uh, like, why would anybody even like us? Why would anybody even like, even here with the podcast? And I'm always saying, every single time I go to start the podcast, and I say, I really don't have anything that anybody wants to hear. Why do I keep doing this? And um then, I get messages from people saying, "Oh, that was really great." And, like, "Oh, I just watched your video a little while ago and I really appreciated it." Or, then I get these messages and then I go, "Oh, okay." But I do also need to work on, like, stop relying on other people for that. Um oh, Peggy, are you an Aquarius too? That's awesome. Um, I am, like, literally every bit in an Aquarius, like, whatever, like, what they describe as an Aquarius is absolutely me. I'm absolutely, like, a daydreamer, and my head is always in the clouds, and I'm, like, the epitome of an Aquarius. That's cool, though. Um, yeah. It's yeah, it most Aquariuses that I meet are very similar. The next thing I wanted to talk about was addiction, and addiction is another form of self-harm, but self-abuse, but addiction is just a wide variety of things. There's not just alcohol abuse or drug abuse or um the addiction is just a wide variety of thing. You can have a shopping addiction. Obviously there's porn addictions, which is um something that's become far more worse since internet has so much free porn on it. At least once upon a time you used to have to, like, go buy a magazine or a video, but now that there's so much free porn on the internet, porn addiction, and I guess that's where masturbation addiction can come in too, because they may go hand in hand, they may not. Well, that was the wrong thing to say, but yes, a YouTube addiction. I know a lot of people who love watching their YouTubes, especially the SPTV friends. One of my addictions is like spending money. Like, I have a problem with spending too much, like a financial addiction or a money spending addiction. I have, like, issues with impulse spending. So that's one area that I try to work on. It's hard. It's really hard because um when it gives me that tiny little boost after I buy things, even if it's temporary, for me, I don't really remember, like, I don't remember from time to time, like, oh, it's only going to be a few minutes and then I'm going to feel guilty, and then I'm going to feel bad, and then I'm going to feel ashamed of myself. So, um when I when I go to the store, I have to, like I go with a list and I try really hard to stay with my list. If I go with my son, my youngest, he'll actually like get annoyed if I start putting stuff in the cart that's not on the list. He'll even say to me like, "Mom, that's not on the list." Or he'll like hold the list and say, "Okay, mom, this is where we're going next." Um and I do kind of feel that I've passed that down to my two older kids because I know that they both like to shop. They really love their thrift stores, which is, they grew up a little bit more wearing thrift store clothes, which is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Yard sales and stuff like that as a young family in the military, not making very much money. But now that they're both adults and on their own and making more money, they do tend to, shop, and they both love going to the thrift shop. And it is a deal, but if you weren't intending to go in there and buy certain things in the first place, then it's not really, then you're actually spending extra money, right? Um so shopping addiction is one that I have. I also have eating disorder, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. Eating disorder is definitely another type of addiction, so I want to cover that, and a form of self-abuse. Um, Drug and alcohol addiction, nicotine addiction, those are chemical based, right? But they're also um they also do change the wiring in your brain over time, especially extremely addictive, very hard drugs such as heroin and methamphetamines. They do change the wirings in your brain, and that's why it's so hard to stop doing them. And it changes your body. It just makes your body like need certain types of things. So you're going to need those drugs over and over again. And why so many people will take methadone for the rest of their lives instead of being able to completely get off of drugs, which is at least a safer alternative, as far as it's not heroin, and it's not the dangerous heroin that's on the streets now laced with fentanyl. But it does come from whatever trauma that you're dealing with, and you do have to deal with that. You have to deal with whatever the base is, whatever it's coming from. You do need to deal with that while you're trying to work on getting rid of your addictions, whatever types of addictions there are. You can't just go to um you know AA or NA or any type of treatment program and go, well, fix me. I'm an addict. Go ahead and fix me. And they put you on their 12-step program. But if you're not dealing with the root causes of why you're doing what you're doing, then you're not going to be able to fix, and it's just going to be a temporary fix. So you can go ahead and go through these 12 steps or whatever the treatment plan is having you do, and you can detox and all that kind of stuff, but that root cause is going to be there still waiting for you. And once you're done with this specific treatment and you try to go back to your normal life, that root cause is still there. So the abuse that you endured when you were little, or maybe both of your parents were alcoholics and they abused each other, or maybe you did have somebody emotionally and mentally abusing you when you were growing up. Whatever it is, something that you went through that caused you to have a specific type of addiction, and that's just going to keep creeping back up on you over and over. So really, some type of deep therapy, maybe like an EMDR, but some type of like like a cognitive behavioral therapy is going to help in the end more so than just trying to, just have somebody help you on the surface level with the addiction. No, I don't want anybody to think I'm any type of expert. I'm not like qualified in anything. I do just do a lot of research on this type of stuff, and I am happy to provide resources. And also, a lot of my research comes from my favorite book here. And I actually do suggest anybody who's interested in any of this type of stuff. This was not very expensive on eBay. And make sure you get the edition. But um, I'm not necessarily trying to help somebody as far as like I just want to bring things up so that we maybe see something in ourselves and we go, oh yeah, I might need help in that area, and then I can provide you with resources. I definitely can't help anybody yet at this stage. I am studying to be a social worker, but that's going to be a long ways down the road. That's a long path because me and school don't do well together. So um I am a trained counselor for a suicide hotline, and um, there is a lot that I've learned about self harm that I'm going to talk about coming up, and that has a lot to do with who I deal with. Um, because so many of the people that I talk to on the hotline, they self-harm first before before they even really seriously consider um suicide. They use forms of self-harm first, which addiction is a form of self-harm, and eating disorder is a form of self-harm. You are physically harming your body when you are doing these things. So all of these roll into each other. Yeah. I um One day I just thought, you know what? I bet there's a whole bunch of these on eBay. And yeah, I think I got this at like a third of the cost because I know these are pricey. People keep telling me, how did you get that? It's so expensive. Yeah, I found a whole bunch of them on there. So eating disorder, I do have an episode that I did on eating disorder, back at Christmas time, because I know that holidays are difficult for people who have eating disorders. You dread the getting together, with other people because, like, you're afraid that everybody's watching you eat. And even if maybe your eating disorder isn't well known by other people, but you still have in the back of your brain, I have an eating disorder, I feel stupid, I'm ashamed of eating. If you're a person who binges and then purges, you are looking for a place to purge by yourself. That's not something usually that other people know about you, and it's usually something that you do quietly by yourself. There is actually another type of eating disorder that I recently found out about called chew and spit. And so that's just where you want the taste of the food in your mouth, but you're not going to swallow it. So you chew it and then spit it out. And that's a new one that I recently learned about. Um, we also have um, anorexia, and that's what I had when I was growing up. My teenage years, my early 20s, I was very anorexic. And then bulimia, which is the binging and the purging. And now I have the eating disorder that's the opposite of um words. That's the opposite of anorexia. Now I eat too much, so now I have overeating. And it took me a really, really long time to publicly say that. I still do eat by myself. Like I won't even eat, like I won't overeat when my husband's around. I'll stay up late at night, or I'll wait because he's a soldier, so he works a lot. He's gone a lot. So I'll just wait for times that he's not around. And I do try to hide it from people. I have snacks kind of stashed where people don't know. Now my kids, they I don't stash snacks like I used to, because it's just me and my husband, and if the kids do come over, which is pretty rare, I if they do find my stash, they know I don't care, and they can go ahead and eat whatever they want. But once upon a time when they were little, if they ever found mommy's stash, they knew to stay away from it because that was mommy's. Mommy needed her own candy stash. And yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, I have no idea what type of social worker I want to be, because I'm interested in so many things. But yeah, I definitely want to know what you do and stuff like that, Peggy. I can shoot you a message on Discord too. Peggy is on my research team for the That's So Fucked Up podcast. And so we both, get the opportunity to learn about different things while we're researching for the host Ashley and her co-host Fallon. It's really neat, the all of the different things that we get to learn. um a lot of times we get to choose what we want to research, and then sometimes they'll give us some topics and they'll be like, hey, these are really hot topics right now, can anybody research these? And um it is neat being able to say, hey, there's something really cool that I found. And most of the time Ashley's like, yeah, looks cool, go ahead. So working for that So Fucked Up has been a really great experience. And I made a lot of pretty cool friends that way. So eating disorder, it's like I said, it's addiction, because you want to keep going with it. You want to just like it gets addicting, and it even gets addicting to where you can get like high off of it. You can um get that like rush off of it because, well, one, I mean, you're either eating too much or not eating enough. But either way, you're probably not getting a lot of proper nutrition to your brain. And so you're really messing up what's going on in your brain. So your hormones and um everything is just wrong in your body. And so that's another reason why you can get high, not necessarily because it is an adrenaline rush, but also because you're just really messing up your body. You can die from it. You definitely, I've seen anorexia patients that I don't know how they aren't dead. I never personally went to a hospital for it. I never went to any type of treatment for it. But it was found out when I want to say 18. Just because I was at a doctor's appointment, and she was looking at my back, because you know how they check for the scoliosis or whatever, and I guess I had a lot of stretch marks on my back, and she asked me if I had an eating disorder, and that threw me off because all the time that I had it, I had at that point had it for 2 years, and I had been able to hide it pretty well. No one had ever asked me that, and I was very skinny, very skinny. I talk about it in my eating disorder video, but like you could see my hips, and you could see, my spine was pretty pronounced, and my collarbone was, and so it was surprising to me that somebody actually called me out on it. And so she recommended that I went to therapy. She didn't recommend any type of inpatient treatment. But even then, I still don't think, I'm not sure what my parents thought I was going to therapy for. But I mean, I did have depression at the time. it was not the right kind of therapy for me. Like it was kind of like a fluff and buff therapy. It was like write in a journal. I would go out once every 2 weeks and be like, right here. She like gave me a notebook. She said, write in your journal things that make you happy every day. And so I get the point of what they're trying to do with that, but and that goes to that the negative self-talk, and you very well can keep a journal, and they say that keeping gratitude journals is really good and it's really helpful, and you write in your gratitude journal whatever things that you are grateful for that happened during a day. You can write it in the morning, first thing, and say, today I'm grateful that both of my parents are still alive, and I have all of my animals, and I have my kids. And like they do say that writing those things out is really good for your to help with that negative self-talk. But I think when I was 18, it just and I had, I mean, what I would say, I don't think I would say moderate anorexia is what I would call it. Um, and I just don't think that at that point in my life, I had a boyfriend, and I just every single day just wrote, I got to see my boyfriend today. And then I think when I go to the therapist every 2 weeks and my whole notebook was just, I was only happy because I got to see my boyfriend, that's not really helping me with anything. So, it was not the right kind of therapy for me. I did not stop being anorexic by any means. And then back then, we did get kicked off of our parents' insurance shortly after you graduate high school, which is why we've pushed for things like that with the like with Obamacare, and we've pushed for kids to be able to stay on their parents' health insurance for so much longer. Because I did end up getting pregnant at 19 and did end up needing health insurance, and I had already been kicked off at that point. So I'm grateful that our kids get to stay on our health insurance until they're 22, and then actually 26 if they choose to still stay in college. Um, anyways, I can go on rants about a lot of things, but healthcare is one of them. The It's just massively, massively broken, and we need a lot of work on it. Um, Hi, buddy. I have my little sidekick over here, my little Scooter. I showed pictures of him before, but I have a cute, fluffy white cat. He's 17 and a half years old. His name is Scooter, and he lives here in my I'll share a picture of him at the end of my video. He's a little shy. He lives in my son's bedroom, which is where I have my little studio here, and he doesn't get along with the dogs too well. But one of the biggest problems that we've had with him is he pees on things, and especially my husband's things, which we don't know why. Well, we think it's because he never was able to bond with my husband because he was deployed when we got Scooter. But um, my husband thinks Scooter's just a little shit and just aims for his stuff purposely, like with a vengeance. So, anyways, Scooter's my little co-host. He hangs out with me in here, and I think sometimes he can sense if I'm talking about things. He'll come and put his little paws on my chair and like ask for pets. So he's a good little emotional support co-host that I have in here. I so with my eating disorder, I've never been a binge and purger. However, I did have a point in my life where I did throw up a lot because I had a bunch of well, I probably still do have the ulcers, but I had a bunch of ulcers in my stomach, and one of the ulcers was sitting right on top of the little hole that goes from your stomach down into your small intestine. So it's the duodenum, I think it's called. And food was like barely passing through it, just a tiny amount. So what I ended up doing was having surgery where we opened up a different side of my stomach and then like attached that to my small intestine. So I actually have now like two little holes that go into my intestines. But before we did that, I was throwing up constantly. And I mean daily, if not a couple times a day, because I just nothing was passing through and it's got to go somewhere. So it would come back. But I'm after that experience, and there was probably 2 or 3 years of that. So after that experience, I'm glad that I did not that I was not ever doing the binging and purging, because it I know now what it does, what a toll it takes on your body. And it, like my teeth got messed up. I've had 3 root canals now, and I think I have 2 more left that I need to do. Like, my teeth got really messed up, um, and it does like, it's supposed to mess up your sinuses too. There's just so many, like, your throat, and, my throat was raw all the time. It was awful. So I at least understand, like, the body condition of what happens because of that. And I feel for anybody that does do the binging and the purging, and I know what it's like to binge, and then you have a stomach full of food, and you're really uncomfortable, but as a form of self-harm, you're eating all of that food, and a lot of people are gonna eat that food until it hurts, and that's, like, a specific goal, like, you are overeating until your stomach hurts, until you have a stomach ache. And so that's a form of self-harm, and you are intentionally like trying to cause pain. And then I'll move from that actually right into self-harm. And this is probably the most difficult of the topics that I'll talk about. So I did use forms of self-harm as a teenager. And I did mostly use cutting and burning. I do have quite a few scars on my legs. I have burn scars, and I have cutting scars on my legs. And um, the people that I talk to on the suicide hotline, a lot of them use self harm, and it's really difficult to talk to people because when I'm on the helpline, I want to just be like, I want to just hug everybody. I want to take all of these, it's usually youth, it's younger people that I talk to, and I want to just hug them because I understand where they're coming from, and I understand what it's like, and I understand how it feels to cut, and I know exactly why they're doing it. And I want to just hug them so badly. We never shame anybody who does it. That's not something I ever want to do. They already feel bad enough. And that's anybody who does abuse themselves, I will say they do feel bad enough for doing it. They don't need anybody else telling them that they're abusing themselves. They don't need other people telling them that they're wrong or that they shouldn't be doing that or trying to shame them because they really do already feel bad enough. They feel like crap as it is. They feel a lot of shame. So I would say the best way to help someone is just to say, "What can I do for you? How can I help you?" Listen when they need to talk, because a lot of people just don't have anyone to talk to. So if you're going to be willing to be a person that they can talk to, then your your job is to listen and not give advice. Um, don't try to shame them any further. Don't go and tell other people. Don't go and tell all of these people, "Oh my god, I did you hear what Susan does to herself?" Um, I have very few people that I can talk to about this, and I think that's kind of why I've been able to talk to talk about this stuff a little bit easier because I'm just literally just looking into a little camera. If there were people like in front of me, I don't think I'd be able to talk about this stuff as easily. But the self-harm is very worrisome because so many things could go wrong. You know, there are people who experiment with um how to cut their wrists, and they do want to experiment with, how far can they go without dying. um they do want to get attention sometimes, so they could cut themselves um in a way that they want attention, and that could go too far. They do experiment with they can experiment with hanging themselves, and we did talk a little earlier when Peggy reminded me about asphyxiation while masturbating. You can experiment with various ways to hang yourself. There are so many ways of self that you can self-harm that are really dangerous and could lead to death. um but again, shaming someone and making them feel bad for doing it is just going to push someone away or make them continue doing it. Because if you make them feel worse about themselves, then they're going to continue doing it, right? In my case, um, like if somebody makes me feel bad about overeating, all it's going to do is it's going to make me go the next day and overeat again. I can't say I do it every day. I have actually a lot of dietary restrictions, and I have a lot of foods that I can eat and I can't eat. And I don't eat meat. Um I'm still trying to figure out the best ways to get protein, but there's a lot of food that I can't eat, like a lot of raw vegetables, a lot of really healthy stuff that I actually need. I can't digest, probably because of the ulcers. Not really sure, but um with me, I do go days without really eating, just because I'm like, there's not a lot in the food in the there's not a lot of food in the house that I can eat, or I'll just get really down on myself because there is so much that I can't eat, and I do have so many dietary restrictions, a lot of dairy restrictions and stuff like that. Um, but if you do make fun of me, or if somebody does make me feel bad about it, I will probably go and binge the next day. Um, it's not it's just how my brain works. Is I'll say I'm just going to get back at this person, or I'll say, well, yeah, I am just a stupid fat overeater, fine, I'll just overeat. That's how my brain works. And so I can't say for other people, but that's what I do to myself when somebody wants to like shame me or make me feel bad for it. And I can't say for me personally, it doesn't really happen too often. I don't honestly know how much my kids know about my eating disorder. I know that they know I have one. I just don't know that they know about any specifics about it. My husband definitely knows I have an eating disorder. His mom has the same eating disorder, so he grew up with somebody who's like me. Um, and um, it is scary to me because I know what my future holds if I do continue to do it. I know how um hard it is on somebody's body, and I've seen people's bodies transform because of the overeating and the binging. So it is something that I am working really hard on, and my husband has a couple things that he's working hard on. So we're both kind of working on some things together, especially now that we don't have the kids in the house anymore and it is just the two of us. I feel like I'm able to maybe speak a little freer. I don't have to, like wonder if the kids are listening, or you know what I mean. He and I can, I feel like, can maybe open up a little better without worrying what the kids hear or something. But I will say my kids are very compassionate kids. They are not the type of people that really would make me feel bad for any of the stuff that I have going on. My daughter will tell me to stop saying negative things about myself, or um my daughter's always like a good cheerleader. She's always telling me she's proud of me, or she's always trying to like build me up, or she'll brag about me to other people, and she'll like build me up and say all these great things. And my two boys also do that, and it's really interesting to me because I don't think that I'm all of those things, and I'm like, what great things do you even have to say? Like, I wasn't always the best mom, but I was better than some moms, like that's kind of what I would say. um but anyways, the so I just want to go back through and recap everything that I was talking about, and then um I just want to talk again real quick about getting help, where you can get help, because sometimes therapy is good for people, and sometimes you have the wrong therapist, like I had recently. Sometimes you have the wrong type of therapy. So looking up different types of therapy is a good idea. And w- actually, one reason why I kind of started to get into all of this mental health care was because I was looking up a couple years ago different types of therapy for me. So that I could understand what there was out there and what I needed to have for me. And so I need like a cognitive behavioral health type of therapy, and I also really need like an EMDR, which is the if Peggy's still here, maybe she can remind me what it stands for. But I know that the EMDR is where you pick a point in your past, um maybe where you think that like a traumatic period started in your life, and then you can follow that like a timeline. And I know that you go really deep into your brain and into your memories in it, and it's something that you shouldn't do. Like with one therapist where we kept planning on doing it, things kept coming up for me and we had to keep pushing it off because like I had like a first day of a new job coming up that week, and she's like, no, this is going to mess you up for the week, so don't do it this week. And then I had a week where my parents were coming, and she was like, no, we're not doing it this week. It'll ruin your week with your parents. There's always a reason why she wanted to push it off, because she said it really does mess with you. And so honestly, I have not, unfortunately, hi sweetie, I have not gotten to do the EMDR therapy yet. So I am still looking for somebody who does that. And most of the people, I'm really isolated in the middle of nowhere. I'm an hour from any type of real resources. So I can't just like, um, I can't just like hop in my car and drive down the road and go to the therapist. Doesn't really work like that for me, unfortunately. I wish I could. Um, so look up different types of therapy, see what is the best type of therapy for you, and maybe something's going on where you do need an inpatient therapy. Maybe you are self-harming so badly that you do need some type of inpatient therapy. With cutting or burning, or eating disorders, or you're doing something where you see the end result is not going to be good, like, or people are telling you, what, the end result is probably not going to be good for you, like, let's find you some help. I know I've been the person on the side of helping other people. Let's look for resources in your area, and let's talk to somebody who can help us find resources in your area. Um, so that's another thing that these helplines are usually good for, and I'll put up the numbers again right when I'm finishing. They're good also to help you find some resources, and a lot of times they can help you find resources right in your area or at least close enough to you. And then there are online options. I'm not going to suggest any specific types of online therapy, but there are a lot of them. But actually, one that I found that I thought was really neat is there's an online therapy. It looks like maybe for younger people, for youth, and you're playing video games in a group with like online treatment with a therapist. So there's like a therapist and then like a small group of people, and you're playing like Minecraft or um Roblox or Pokemon. There was like a whole bunch of different games that you could play. And I thought that was really smart. I'm actually really interested into looking into that. I don't play video games, but I just want to know like what it's like and how is it helping people? Because I thought what an interesting idea. As long as, everybody is vetted and it's like it's for real, not like fake people can get on and then because I know the internet, I know how bad and scary it can be, but I other than that, I think it would be really neat for especially like maybe a 12, 13, 14-year old. They don't have anybody else to open up to, and then they can go on and they can play one of their favorite games and maybe talk to a couple people their age and a therapist. I thought that was really neat. Anyways, um it was something I wanted to look into because I was like, "Wow, that's a really smart idea." Um, so I talked about negative self-talk, and that's damaging because negative self-talk can lead to all of the other stuff that we talked about. The negative self-talk can lead to um the self-harm. It can lead to you cutting, or it can lead to you overeating or binging and purging or not eating at all. It can lead to you doing something to seriously harm yourself because whatever you're telling yourself you're going to believe. You're the main person that you're going to believe. So if you are telling yourself all of the negative things like I'm not worth it, or I'm a piece of shit, I'm stupid, I'm ugly. If you're telling yourself all of these things constantly and like that's the main voice in your head, it definitely can lead to something very scary. And it can lead to self-harm or overeating or undereating in a way that's dangerous. So working on that negative self-talk is probably one of the most important things. um, I said that there's power in having like your daily affirmations if you want to. I knew someone who had a journal right next to their bed, and like the very first thing when they woke up in the morning, when their alarm clock went off, they grabbed their journal, and the front page of their journal was their affirmations, and they read their affirmations very first thing in the morning before they did anything else. I've known people who've put post-it notes on their mirror, and so that when they're getting ready in the morning, that's what they see, their affirmations. Um, People put them on their refrigerator so that when they're preparing their breakfast, you it's something that you tell yourself every single day, and that's something that you're going to believe about yourself. You don't have to start off believing it by any means. But when you say the same thing over and over, it sinks in, right? With the negative talk, that sinks in easier because it's easier to believe. But with the positive affirmations, it's much harder to believe. You don't really think that you're smart and capable and everybody loves you, right? But if you continue day after day after day, it is eventually going to sink in. Um, and that is something that I talk to my um, contacts on the suicide hotline about is, just telling yourself a couple times a day something that you like about yourself, or congratulating yourself on something um, that you did right, instead of, oh my God, that was so stupid. I can't believe you did that. Why did you do that? Something went right. And then you're going to pat yourself on the back and go, oh, wow, I'm actually proud of myself. That was really cool. Taking a moment to acknowledge that, and then it becomes a habit. And what is it? They say it takes like 10,000 times to do something for it to become a habit or something like that. But you just continuing to do those little things every single day is really going to help. And yeah, I need to do it too. I'm not by any means good at any of this. It's all stuff that I'm working on too. There are workbooks that you can find all over the place. I know on Amazon there's a bunch of like self-love type of workbooks that I've found. And then just like talking about what you're grateful for every single day. I'm grateful for whatever. And we are really grateful for certain things every day. Even when our life is at the absolute bottom, we don't see any way out. There is always something, at least tiny, tiny, to be grateful for. And that could be something as simple as like, I'm still alive today, or I at least still have a car. I at least still have a job. I at least still have enough money to feed my cat. Like there's always just something that you can find. But I've been to the absolute bottom, bleak, where I thought that there was nothing. I know it is a bit easier with me because I have my kids. My kids are always at the top of my priority list, and so as long as I have my kids and my pets, um, like my cute little co-host here, I'm always going to be able to have something like that I'm grateful for. But I do truly understand what it's like to be at the very bottom and not see any type of light whatsoever. Okay, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. That's what it stands for. So yeah, I do really want to do it. I think it would help me a lot. As I do have I certainly do have repressed trauma. And so I think it would be good for me at some point. So negative self-talk, addiction. We talked about addiction. I think with addiction, I wouldn't even say to try to tackle addictions on your own, honestly. And that's, I mean, like I said before, not a professional opinion. It's not really advice. It's just addiction is something that I said before, there's a root cause of it. And there's something deep in there. And like me, it could be repressed too. Maybe you don't even know. But it's just, to me, addiction is just kind of like, it's scary. Again, it can lead to serious harm. But it can lead to worse addictions. Like it's a snowball. And like the stupid saying about how like marijuana is the gateway drug, and things like that. Like, I'm not going to say one way or the other as far as that goes. I don't think there's anything wrong with marijuana and marijuana products, and I'm very glad that it's becoming legal and destigmatized. But I am saying there is a snowball that starts with every addiction, and it gets bigger and bigger, and the addiction's going to get worse and worse. And I just wouldn't really recommend people trying to work on it by themselves. I think it's just something that's too big. It needs some type of professional help. Whether you think you need an inpatient, if you think that it is something that you need to detox from, you need to get away from a certain crowd of people. You need to get away from your house. Everybody in your house drinks. And how are you going to stop drinking when everyone in your house drinks? Or like we have gone the route of like kind of taking away my money. I don't want to say that in a bad way. It's not like I don't ever have access to money, and that's not what I'm saying at all. Like I have my own job, I have my own paychecks. um but I we did have to get to the point where I didn't have access to like the credit cards. I didn't have access to the money that we pay the bills from, and yeah, I have messed up pretty badly as far as my shopping addiction goes. Which I mean, it's something that happens. Same like a gambling addiction. Or online porn addiction, you're spending money on that. There's so many things that you spend money on that can take you down that road that you can seriously mess up your finances, um and relationships because of it. I have an amazing husband who works with me on a lot of things. He has a lot of patience. He's forgiven me many times. I did actually want to do an episode one time on what it's like with a mentally ill wife. I don't He hasn't quite agreed to that yet, because I don't know if I don't think he really wants to talk about it too much, but he has been great as far as my mental illness and working with me. Um Eating disorder, and again, I think eating disorder is something that needs professional help. And I know from my own personal experience, it's not something I've ever been able to kick on my own. And I have never actually kicked eating disorder. It's just morphed from one thing into another. I told the story on my video that I did about eating disorders. Is when I got married, I was 105 pounds. I was, a size 0. Um, they actually had to put pads in my wedding dress to even like, because I had nothing. I was a flat chest, a skinny, tiny. I mean, my arms were tiny. I was just the littlest thing. And that came from me choosing not to eat. But I when I became pregnant with my daughter at 19, I weighed 97 pounds. So I was fairly skeletal. I was a skinny thing, and I did not eat, and having to learn how to eat for two was very hard. um so people would take me out to eat all the time, because they were worried about me. They'd take me for ice cream, or they'd take me for pizza. People would worry about me not gaining enough weight for the baby and stuff. um so Addiction and eating disorder, they go hand in hand. Their eating disorder is an addiction, as is self-harm. Self-harm is an addiction. And again, that's something that I think self-harm needs professional help. You can work on it yourself. You can try to monitor it yourself. And there are a lot of kids who contact me on the suicide hotline, and they talk about self-harm a lot. And the one thing I have to say about self-harm, not saying it's okay, but um, they are doing it instead of suicide. Um, so they do understand the difference, and they understand what they're doing to themselves, and they know that, they're not probably not doing it with the intention of trying to kill themselves. And I do ask that. We have that question, if they're doing self-harm with the intent of trying to kill themselves. Most of the time they say no. They're doing it just because that they're doing that specific activity, and it does not have to do with suicide. Um, and self-harm goes with eating disorders and addiction, because there's so many things that you harm yourself. I talked about before, you can eat until you're way too full. And then the point in that is to cause pain. or you can drink or do drugs. There's various addictions that you can do because you know that it's going to cause some type of pain or high or something like that. And all of these do connect in with each other. And I would say, like, from my experience, I know that there is deep rooted trauma, and I know that there's a reason for all of this. And I have been working on it, but ever since I hit my 40s, I've been especially aware of how all of this stuff like affected my kids growing up. And I have been aware of, like, after I turned 40 and I started getting real professional help was when I got all of my various diagnoses, which I can um definitely talk about someday, and there's a good handful of them, which is why I have my my DSM-5, because um part of the reason was because I had so many diagnoses, I didn't understand them all and wanted to look them up. um so let me just put those numbers back up again, okay? And please, anybody who needs help that the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 988, and you can actually chat online with them through their website if you don't want to talk to somebody on the phone. I know my hotline, we have 3 ways for people to chat with us because not everybody wants to talk on the phone to somebody, and that's perfectly fine. Um, and I like the National Alliance on Mental Health. You can call them, or you can text the word helpline to 62640. Or I put their email there. You can email them and somebody will email you back very quickly. The crisis text hotline for self-harm, that's through texting. You text the word connect to 741-741. And I'll pop up my email. So if you want to talk to me, if you want to collaborate on something, please give me a text. And I'm open to collaborating on anything. I would love to talk to people about whatever it is y'all want to talk about. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining me today. And if you do know people who are self abusing, if it is you, um, just be gentle. Be gentle with yourself, be gentle with other people, and try to talk kindly to yourself. And I know, like I said, I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, and I struggle with it a lot, but I'm working on it, actively working on it. And I just like to be there for other people. So when other people are going through this, I understand, I know what it's like, and I like to just listen and be that ear for other people who are going through these types of things too. So thank you very much. And this is the first in my series on abuse. And I probably be doing these weekly, as it's not the easiest thing to talk about. So maybe over the week, over the next week. Thank you so much, Peggy. I appreciate you. Over the week, I will decide which one I'm doing next, because these aren't the easiest things to talk about. All right, thank you so much, friends, and I will see you all soon.